I know that in a previous video, I denoted that I felt that millennials were bigots. And while I still consider most women to be quite bigoted against older men, despite the fact that older men would give their children longer telomeres, which would make them live longer, despite the fact that a chemical equilibrium would be achieved with dropping rates of telomeres in men past the age of 35 and women under the age of 35, not to mention that the fertility chemical progesterone is also an immune boosting chemical and is most molecularly propagated in women under the age of 26, and also the Hayflick limit, where an abundance of telomerase has been shown to cause cancer, depression, stress, and anger later on in life. So it might be wise for these reasons to make sex with males under the age of 35 illegal. Now, the reason that I feel that millennials are bigots, especially women under the age of 26, is quite simple. They're not stupid. There's a lot of reasons to not date older men as well, and that would be lack of information, that would be anecdotal evidence that older men are more sexist, it would also be information that perhaps older men are lying or child molesters and pedophiles simply for wanting to date women under the age of 20 when no laws are broken in any context whatsoever. But it should be denoted that the heteronormative pattern is not just a pattern of the opposite sexes co-aligning, it would be an age gap relationship. And from my own recollect, I could say that I have 8 ex-girlfriends, and all 8 of these ex-girlfriends, half of them are my age, which would be 36 years old, and the other half would be older than me, up to 18 years older than me. One of them was 12 years older than me. One of them was 2 years older than me. One of them was a year older than me in the 6th grade. So I have plenty of evidence that just from friends could tell you, and I have pictures from women that I've dated, that half the women I've dated, which is 4 of them, were older than myself. And not to mention I've had short-lived relationships with younger females than them that were my age. But as I've been single for 4.5 years, I've never once dated younger women despite trial and error on OkCupid, on Plenty of Fish, on Tinder. I have a fan base of over 6,000 on Facebook. I had to start another account to account for a lot of these people who may or may not be trolls, simply there to spread faulty information. I do have MRSA, but at the same time, you really ought to do your research. MRSA is little more than misunderstood. It's a skin infection. It's like refusing to date somebody because they have a pimple. I have plenty of evidence that I have never spread MRSA to anybody else, and it's not highly contagious at all. I can show you my hospital records, and I can show you other things. I could talk about my cousin who has MRSA as well, and his wife doesn't have MRSA, his 2 sons don't have MRSA, and his mother and father, my aunt and uncle, don't have MRSA. So, yes, I do have MRSA, but it's like saying, yes, you're not going to date me because I have a toe fungus. It's absolutely mental retardation or bigotry for you to say that you won't date me. I also have a diagnosis of bipolar, and it's schizotypal. However, I've seen a therapist off and on for 16 years, and I stopped taking the antipsychotic medication in 2007 based on the fact that I was having secondary complications, including weight gain. I've lost 175 pounds since 2007, after I dropped the medication off. The antipsychotics were making me sicker than I ought to have been. I've been hospitalized, but I haven't been hospitalized in approximately a decade for this. And no one that I see at any of the health agencies that I've gone to have recommended that I get back on antipsychotic medication. So unless I see a degree on your wall, perhaps it would be best to keep your mouth shut, because you don't know what you're talking about. Most of the people that I see would agree that I probably have a bit of schizophrenia, or perhaps even a misdiagnosis. On either occasion, the psychologists that I've seen, the counselors that I've seen, and the intake staff that I've seen dozens and dozens of times have not recommended further hospitalizations. They know that I'm occasionally suicidal out of depression of not having a girlfriend for 5 years. And if you want to walk downtown, any town in the United States, and see young, beautiful women, that's fine, but what you're going to see is young, beautiful women with guys with more money than you, and you're going to see guys that are their own age. So another reason perhaps to date older men over the age of 35 like myself would be that young men are obnoxious. And on average, according to every study that I've read, from Britain to the United States, women on average mature 11 years sooner than men. So when you're talking to a 19-year-old female, maybe instead of calling her a bitch and a cunt and a hoe, you could realize that this female is actually 30 years old if you're a male. So I would say that 20-year-old women are more like 31-year-old men. They're a lot more mature. And the minute you pull the women away from the men that are their own age, you will notice this pattern. So it's not so much that I'm a feminist, it's just more that I know from science that women are more mature. Some other information that you might dredge up about me is a domestic violence charge from 2012. What had happened, if I were to come clean, is that I was in a restaurant with my girlfriend at the time, who again was 18 years older than me, and we were in love, but at the same time she supplied me with a lot of caffeine, and I bought a lot of soda, and I was getting into bad habits again. And the domestic violence charge was the fact that I threw a glass at a wall in a restaurant and stormed off. I've never once been violent towards women or even yelled at women in my life. It just got filed as a domestic violence charge because, well, I think that she was kind of being an unfair bitch. But at the same time, I'm not unhappy for her. Again, I will admit that I was not as mature as I could have been, and obviously I was less mature than she was because of the way I acted. And there were other things going on. I am a male, so I'm not as mature as women of my own age. And so I would like to date younger women because they would be at my level of maturity, which would be dating perhaps 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds or 26-year-olds, because I'm going to be 37 years old. I'm not actively seeking out 16-year-olds, but I have had disagreements over the age of consent. In Washington State, that is the age of consent, with or without an age gap. And I think it's foolish to say, you think it's immature because 21-year-olds shouldn't be allowed to drink. That's foolishness. That's your opinion. Please keep it to yourself. Again, I'm only interested in legal-aged women under the age of 26 because I've already dated 4 older women. I've already dated 4 women my own age and found them interesting for completely different reasons. All 8 of these women have ended up with older men because men mature at a much slower rate. So it would be within my interest to find somebody that is younger than me. I can also say that my dad has been married to a younger female, my stepmom, who's still gorgeous, and my dad and her still get along after 29 years of marriage. Their financial status has also gone up quite a bit. It's why I don't borrow money from my father or my stepdad or my mom or any of them, because, one day they'll kick the bucket and I'll have money. I want them to live longer for a lot of reasons. I love my family, but I mean, logically, they would take care of it. If my dad's around for another 100 years, hypothetically, then his property looks better. Hey, maybe I don't want to take care of 12 acres of land. And my dad does a good job of making the place look good. So when we go out to visit him, there's something to talk about. And I don't think that I want to spend a bunch of time maintaining the cows and the horses and the dogs and the cats and the land, because they're good at it. They make it look good. And I think that my parents in Arizona, my stepdad and my mom use their money wisely, and it would be impetuous of me at the age of 37 to expect any kind of money from them, because if I'm 67 or 97, they would have more of it. I mean, think of it that way. I mean, aside from the fact that I love my family and would like them to be alive longer, they're just making more money that would be passed on to their sons. So they're making life better for us by living longer, and the more that they're away from us, they want to see us more. And that's great, because as an adult you start to realize that your parents have some valid points, and one of the valid points is that younger people are full of shit, especially males. And being a guy that has two brothers, one of them is almost 40, and he dates a lot of younger women, and a younger brother who's a third grade teacher and 2 years younger than me, doesn't mean that we weren't irresponsible buttheads to our parents. And as you get older, you realize that males are a lot more immature towards women when they're younger. You can pull up plenty of statistics, and I have several of these listed on my site. So the obnoxiousness of males is because male youth entitlement is pumped through the culture, and has been pumped through the culture for the past 70 years. Let alone the fact that mental retardation has shortened the telomeres of each successive generation, from current research from 2009 on shortening telomeres being the same as shortening telomeres with inbreeding. In fact, it's a lot shorter. That you have the saying, short fuses. Well, those short fuses are your chromosomes, and what that causes is anger issues, more depression, more stress, and also more susceptibility to cancer if you look at it both ways. Too much telomerase, cancer. Too little telomerase, cancer. So what you find is that the relationship where the male is older and the female is younger, you will find chemical equilibrium. You will find that the maturity level is about the same. You will find that the Hayflick limit could come in as a topic of discussion, because younger males will give you cancer. And the reason that I'm saying younger males is because younger females also produce progesterone, which is an immune boosting chemical in their bodies that also has the effect of making them pregnant. So if you want to get a girl pregnant, she's got to be as young as possible, allowed by the law, and that's your most fertile ground. And I have evidence from all my parents and all my relationships that have gone sour, that the older man, younger female relationship pattern always works out better. And yes, my body chemicals are less likely to give you cancer because I'm over the age of 35. And if we were to have kids, the second effect would be that our kids would have longer telomeres, like if you chose not to breed within your family. There's the chemical equilibrium between a younger female and an older male, and younger males are a lot more obnoxious and women mature, on average 14 to 11 depending on the studies, but most of them have evened out at 11 years sooner. So It would be best to take all these things into consideration when I say that millennial females under the 26 years have been bigots towards me. They'll be in agreement, they'll look at the age, oh, he's 36, therefore he's yucky. Well, I've just automatically didn't come to this occasion where I've decided to just bullshit you. I have hundreds of links on my website that older men are better for several reasons. Not only will your kids live longer, our bodies will give you less chance of cancer. So those two reasons alone, and you're still a bigot, congratulations, you're for Donald Trump. Fuck you. I don't really like Hillary Clinton as much either, but the way I've described it is if I were to eat a handful of vomit, it would be Hillary Clinton. And if I were to eat a handful of shit, it would be Donald Trump. And I'm used to the flavor of vomit, so I'm not going to vote for either of them. But at the same time, I think that Hillary Clinton is obviously going to win the 2016 election. It doesn't mean I wasn't for Bernie Sanders and against the power of money in politics. It just means that I'm not going to vote. Anyway, the point now is that I would like to go on a date. I have $1,400 in savings. I live at a homeless shelter. I'm saving my money. I don't really want to hear the negativity, and I don't really want to hear the bullshit from people that they shouldn't date me for obvious reasons that are just not explained, that I've tried to explain in this 5th part about why you should date older men. So if you can't at that point admit that you're a bigot, then you're not a Democrat, and you're not a socialist, and you're not a leftist, and you're not a progressive, and you're not a populist. You're not left-wing. Sorry, but you're Donald motherfucking Trump. Even if you're against homophobia, sexism, and racism, as you should grow to be as you mature as a human being, against bigotry, if you're still holding on to the bigotry of guys over the age of 35, including myself, who's been single for 5 years, you remind me more of Donald Trump than Bernie Sanders. I don't think that's cute, interesting, or funny. I don't think, hey asshole, is a good way to start a conversation with me, or fuck you, or fuck off. You really do need to grow up. So my offer is Red Robin with me, or anywhere downtown Spokane. And if you're interested in a female under the age of 26, for all the reasons that I've explained in these videos that I posted to YouTube and my website, please send me an email from my website, Conversation Our Age. And it's a pun, it's spelled conversationrage.weebly.com, because I talk a lot about telomeres. And it's really not all that long. You could probably go through it in 15 minutes. If you skip the links. But if you go through the links, every last one of them, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And even the titles alone of the links would help my case. So at most, you're going to spend a half hour on my website, which again is Conversation Our Age. ConversationOurAge.WEE.com. conversationourage.weebly.com. My name is Lucas Werner, and I really hope that this 5-part series on why you should date men over the age of 35 helps you, helps me, and helps the world make a case for age gap relationships not being creepy and the heteronormative role. As a matter of fact, the gay community is in support of this. And if you're into multiracial, once you go black, you never go back, but once you go age, your children live for longer days.